How's everyone doing? I'm actually going to review a book, Solomon and Sheba. It's a 1954 edition written by Senzi Ormond. Probably butchering his name, but don't really know how to pronounce it. I don't know, it was a pretty good book. I picked it up from Samson's in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. For a while there, I went through a divorce and was just trying to kind of find my way, and I was getting into Rastafari, kind of dabbling in that, seeing if that was the right direction to go, but I don't know, I ended up not really liking it, finding out that Jah was Jahoveh, and I already grew up learning about him and his track record. It's a little crazy. But I did end up learning some cool stuff about King Solomon and King David and their lineage, and kind of going back and reading some side stuff. Basically, Solomon and the Queen of Sheba is a novel form of their romance together. It's pretty much essentially like a love story. And at the beginning of it, King David is dying. This is David that slayed Goliath, the Nephillim. And he's on his deathbed and wanting to find an heir to the throne. And he chooses Solomon, and Solomon's not next in line to be heir. It's actually Adonijah, which I did think was kind of like a little throwback to Jah, which is Jahoveh. The Rastafari, they refer to him as Jah. So Solomon's chosen to be king, and he's pretty young, and Adonijah gets pissed off and rides off into the desert with his, like, pretty much he's kind of like, reminds me of kind of like a Mongol or something. He just lives out in tents with his people, kind of like desert bandits pretty much. But he's traveled and seen other lands, and he's an elder brother. But King Solomon dies and leaves the throne to, or not King Solomon, King David dies and leaves the throne to King Solomon. So he's running Jerusalem, and he's the king of the Israelites at this point. But basically it's the love story of Solomon and Sheba, which she was a black girl, black princess, from Ethiopia, I believe. They goes into detail on her getting the throne from her mom. She actually murders her mom because her mom's psycho and tries to murder her for like sacrifice, because they're moon worshippers. Back in the day, like the Egyptians and there was a lot of sun and moon worship and star worship, planet worship. That's where you get like Mars, Neptune, how they worship the planets. And the Sumerians, they were the same way. They worshiped the sun, and the Egyptians worshiped the sun. They called them Atum and Amen, stuff like that. But basically, she grew up in a moon worshipping area, country and stuff, and they worshiped the moon, and human sacrifice was common. So the mother went to go sacrifice her, and she ended up killing the mom and gaining the throne. But this era that the story takes place is during the building of Solomon's temple, which falls a lot into Freemasonry and stuff. And I actually got a book here that I'll review another day. It's called the Hiram Key. Here, let's see. There's better lighting. Hiram Key. That's by Christopher Knight and Robert Lomas. And that gets into the whole building of Solomon's Temple and the several degrees that are the beginning stages of Freemasonry on basically the death of Hiram Abif. There's actually two Hirams. There's Hiram of Tyre, which is a king that that Solomon was doing business with and stuff. And the black princess that Solomon falls in love with and stuff, her name's Makata, and her mother was in rule, and their country was kind of failing because Solomon was basically monopolizing everything. And that's how it kind of, she was going to send her daughter over there to spy on Solomon and figure out what they could do. And it's kind of like a mission to kill Solomon. But she falls in love, he falls in love, and it all gets thwarted, pretty much, is the whole key to the story, is she's there to kill him and spy on him. And she ends up in cahoots with Adonijah, and she doesn't kill him. She ends up pregnant with their son, which here's another book I'm going to show you, and I'll review it too later on because I've read it. It's Signs of the Gods by Eric von Daniken, and they take a lot of text. He takes a lot of text from the Kebra Nagast, which is pretty much like the Rastafari Bible. There's a lot of ancient astronaut stuff in there, like Solomon had his own flying machine, and the Ark of the Covenant. A lot of people believe it's like a nuclear reactor, nuclear waste that's contained in a certain container. But anyways, those are two books I'll have to review later. When you get into Solomon and the line of King David, you can go several different ways. You got Freemasonry, you got Rastafari. So let me get back to the point of this book, and I'll make other videos someday getting into the whole Hiram Key and Signs of the Gods. So we'll get further into it. But she's a moon worshiper, and Solomon's having this struggle. He was honestly probably like my favorite Israelite king, because he was a rock star. Like, he had multiple wives. I mean, hundreds of wives, like 1,000 concubines, something like that. Just taking advantage of being a king of Israel. And he falls in love with Makata, and she ends up staying at the palace for a night, and he tells the cook, put too much spice in her food, but don't give her water. Like, he tells the people that are taking care of her and stuff, don't give her water. Keep the only water pitcher in my room, so that way she has to come to my room in the middle of the night when she's thirsty and got heartburn and stuff. So she goes to his room, and they make love, and she starts like making him think, because he's an Israelite. He believes in Jahoveh, and he's actually building the temple for Jahoveh at the time. And Israel, during that early stage, they were still polytheistic. Like, Jahoveh had a wife, and a lot of people don't know that, but back in the day when Judaism first started out, Jahoveh had a wife. And I'll get into that in another video and talk about that, I'm sure. But they were very polytheistic, and there was still a lot of Baal worship and stuff. And so she kind of comes over, and brings in her gods and starts changing his mindset to more of polytheism. And he's got this inner struggle that he's supposed to believe in Jehovah and that's it. But he's in love. He's being split in two by lust and love, pretty much. But Adonijah, Makata, she ends up talking to him and kind of getting on his side and stuff, that he wants the throne. So it's crazy. It is an awesome story. It's definitely good. It gets into the building of the temple, which I said gets into Freemasonry and Rastafari, and it's not a real long read. It's like 200 something pages. There's an awesome twist at the end. Like Adonijah gives Solomon his like a knife with a lion's head on the bottom of the handle and stuff, and that comes into play. But anybody that read the Bible or anything like that, like he ends up impregnating her, and pretty much she goes back to Ethiopia. And if you study Rastafari or know anything about that, it delves a lot into that. Delves into Freemasonry, because Hiram Abif is a character in it. And Hiram Abif is actually the master mason for the Temple of Solomon. And whether you believe in it as a physical temple or symbolism, Hiram Abif was pretty much murdered. And there's a whole ceremony in Freemasonry that tells the story, and you actually interact in it. I don't know, my suggestion to you, it's a good book, definitely read it. Solomon and Queen of Sheba. But my suggestion to you would be to either study Freemasonry or join it. The book that I have here, the other book that I'm going to review another day, the Hiram Key by Christopher Knight, he basically gives you the first 3 degrees, tells you exactly what happens, but he has to change it here and there. So when I go through it and review it, I'll read it off to you, the several degrees, like all the stuff they say and do. But it will be different than the actual degrees, because he can't tell you everything that's going on. Because when you join Freemasonry, they pretty much tell you, you release the secrets. There's this elaborate stuff they make you say and agree to, is like stuff about like boiling you alive and cutting off your tongue, just crazy shit like that. Like, so I mean, it's deep, and I don't think he was probably a Freemason. I don't know. The guy that wrote the book, it was actually kind of cool. I've seen a picture of him. He's wearing like this big like pharaoh Egyptian headdress, but it's a good book, and it's not boring. It really isn't. It's not a long read. There's no chapters. That was the only thing that aggravated me, is there's no chapters. It's just start to finish. But it was only like 200 something pages. But it's still aggravating. I like the satisfaction of going through a chapter and going, oh, I finished that chapter, or I have 5 more chapters to go, or 10 more chapters to go. But yeah, give it a read. That's a 1954 edition I have. I don't know how easy it's going to be to find the book. But worst case scenario, read the Kebra Nagast. Join Freemasonry, or read the Bible. It's, if anything, it's interesting. But everybody have a good night.